Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Monday, March 16th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, high-level Chinese and U.S. delegations have gathered in Paris for economic and trade talks. China's economy is off to a strong start, with many major indicators putting up robust growth numbers. And protesters in several Western countries have held rallies against the U.S. Israeli attacks on Iran. In business, China's services sector is booming through the first 2 months of the year. In sports, the Winter Paralympic Games have come to a close in Italy. In culture and entertainment, the National Ballet of China is on an overseas tour. Now checking the day's top stories. High-level discussions between Chinese and U.S. delegations on economic and trade issues continue in Paris on Monday. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng already met with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent over the weekend. The ongoing talks follow previous meetings in Europe and Asia. An important context for this new round is the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that some American tariffs were unlawful, signaling a potential reset of U.S. trade policy. Rising tensions in the Middle East have also increased global economic uncertainty. China's vowed to safeguard its legitimate development interests and uphold the stability of the multilateral trading system and the global trade order. Li Jianhua has more.
This is the second day of the China-US trade talks in central Paris, and today we saw less cars, apparently. And the two principals, I understand from both delegations, are not inside the OECD, the building behind me, for the second day of the trade talks. It's a little bit unusual compared with our previous experience covering the trade talks across Europe, because the two principals usually wouldn't leave the delegation, the discussions, until almost the very end of the second day. So that is one thing. And yesterday, the talks lasted for about 7 hours, but both delegations were really tight-lipped. They didn't really speak to media, so we didn't really get access to what they had been talking about yesterday behind those closed-door meetings. The latest development, I have to say, is the statement from China's Commerce Ministry overnight taking issues with the Section 301 investigations into 60 major economies, including China, citing forced labor. And the Commerce Ministry says the WTO, the World Trade Organization, had previously ruled the Section 301 tariffs on China, citing forced labor, against the WTO rules, and this is fabrication. But we didn't really see any comment from the American side on that yet. So the American delegation will definitely wake up to the statement from the Commerce Ministry before they start the trade talks today. So today, we are looking at the following topics. We will see if there is any agreement or consensus coming out of the talks. So one is if there is any agreement or framework in terms of China's purchase of agricultural products from the United States, and we have been talking about the exports of soybeans from the U.S. to China, because China is the largest buyer of soybeans from the United States, and the time is pretty sensitive for President Trump because the Trump administration is facing the midterm elections in November. Another topic we are expecting, if there is any breakthrough, that is the trade imbalance, because days before the trade talks were announced, the U.S. Trade Representative's office launched there were two Section 301 investigations, and this is the other one that was into 16 major trading partners of the United States, with China also on top of the list. And the Commerce Ministry has already rejected it, calling it a unilateralist act. And on top of that, we'll see if there is any agreement in terms of the exports of rare earths, because Jameson Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, earlier went on record as saying that they would continue to get rare earths from China to support the manufacturing base of the United States. And of course, the situation for this round of trade talks is getting really more complicated because of the war in the Middle East. And on top of everything, it has been widely reported that President Trump could visit China at the end of this month, but Beijing has repeatedly said that they didn't really confirm it. But overnight, Mofa, the Foreign Ministry of China, said that the high-level exchanges between the two heads of state plays a strategic role in bilateral relations, and they are still in very, very close contact regarding that.
That was Li Jianhua in Paris. The Chinese Commerce Ministry has said that the U.S. 301 trade probe targeting 60 economies, including China, seriously disrupts international economic and trade order. Last week, the U.S. announced 2 Section 301 investigations, one into forced labor and another into industrial overcapacity. China's lodged representations with the U.S. as the two sides hold economic and trade talks in Paris. Beijing has urged Washington to correct what it calls a mistaken approach and to resolve disputes through dialogue based on mutual respect and equal consultation. The ministry says China's always opposed forced labor. As one of the founding members of the International Labor Organization, China's ratified 28 international labor conventions and established a legal framework to guard against forced labor. The Commerce Ministry adds that China will closely monitor the investigation and reserves the right to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. And for more insights on China-U.S. economic ties, Lincoln Humphreys spoke to John Gong, a professor of economics at the University of International Business and Economics.
So the U.S. economy is currently balancing some stubborn inflation, likely exacerbated by higher energy prices due to the attacks on Iran, with signs of weakening employment as well. In that context, has Washington's negotiation position weakened since the previous trade talks, and how critical is stabilizing relations with China for Washington's broader economic strategy?
Well, I don't think Washington believes that its negotiating position has been weakened. As a matter of fact, I think it goes into the negotiation sort of maintaining the same position. I mean, all these talks about Section 301 investigation is all rhetorical in my view. I mean, if you really think about it, what's the whole purpose of doing this? The purpose is to essentially remedize the Supreme Court judgment, which renders the previous tariffs based on IEEPA legislation is becoming invalid right now. And they're trying to come up with some new set of tariffs to make sure that the same tariffs are maintained. And that's the whole purpose of Section 301 investigation. So this whole thing is it's just funny in my view. So nevertheless, I think I think President Trump is moving on to something more important. I think that this negotiation in Paris is probably more centered around additional new Washington requests regarding things pertaining to the Iran conflict. So I think this is what's probably holding the negotiation a little bit longer than expected.
So beyond the bilateral relationship between China and the US, how important are stable trade ties between the two largest economies in the world for global supply chains, investment flows, and the overall health of the world economy?
Well, of course, this is important, very important. I mean, the Sino-US relationship, including the economic relationship, is the most important bilateral relationship of the 21st century. There's no doubt about this. But nevertheless, let me also emphasize that the importance of the American market to China exports has been steadily diminishing. I mean, so right now, U.S. market only accounts for about 7% of total China's exports. So it's something that China can still see it further declining, even though China's total exports has been climbing at a spectacular pace. The first 2 months of this year, January and February, China's exports has been increasing by over 20%. Think about that. So, the U.S. market is becoming less and less important from China's perspective. So that, provides China with sort of additional bargaining power at the table. Nevertheless, I still want to emphasize that it's a very important relationship. And today and yesterday, probably the negotiation is more about the things going on in the Middle East. I think from China's perspective, or from Washington's perspective, this trade relationship is actually quite stabilized. Using a quote that I've seen from some press to describe the Sino-US economic relationship, it used the phrase remarkably stable. And indeed it is. So far, it's been remarkably stable. So I think it's more about politics, geopolitics in specific, as opposed to economics in this case.
That was John Gong, professor of economics at the University of International Business and Economics. Key U.S. trading partners have condemned Washington's launch of wide-ranging Section 301 investigations, presenting a unified stance against the latest unilateral trade measure. The European Union stating it would respond with firm and proportionate countermeasures if the investigations violate the terms of the 2025 EU-U.S. trade agreement. Key Asian allies such as Japan and South Korea have also lodged formal complaints, urging Washington to preserve the balance of existing trade deals and protect their core industries from potential new restrictions. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian nations, including Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, have begun to assess the impacts on their exports, as international experts warn that bypassing multilateral bodies undermines global trade rules and threatens economic recovery. Coming up, strong recovery numbers for China's economy.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
At 11 minutes past the hour. China's economy has gotten off to a robust start in 2026, with major indicators posting a notable recovery. National Bureau of Statistics data shows that value-added industrial output rose 6.3% in the first 2 months. High-tech manufacturing jumped over 13%. New quality productive forces continued to grow. Foreign trade was up over 18% to 7.7 trillion yuan. That's over $1 trillion US. Investment in fixed assets rose 1.8% to over 5 trillion yuan. Meanwhile, total retail sales of consumer goods grew 2.8% in the first 2 months. Online retail sales of goods and services climbed 9.2%. The surveyed urban unemployment rate remains stable at 5.3%. At the just concluded 2 sessions, the Chinese government set a GDP growth target of 4.5% to 5% for the year, signaling a commitment to delivering stronger results where possible. The countries vowed to continuously expand domestic demand and improve supply. And for more on the Chinese economy, Xia Cheng spoke with Chu Cheng, a fellow of the Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China.
China has reported on an increase of its main economic indicators in the first 2 months of this year. What's your interpretation of the latest data?
Oh, yes. We can argue that the Spring Festival factors did kick in, and which make the number, hype up, more than our expectation. But if you dig into all these kind of the categories, you will find out, yes, actually we've been seeing the fundamentals has been changing, very rapidly. I think there are several reasons for that. And I think number one is about our policies been taking effect. Actually, ever since the beginning of this year, I think the central government actually has been, downput more of the extra fund and the local bond for, constructions and for all kinds of the projects. For example, there is another 100 billion yuan special fund to try to support investment and consumptions. So I think the policy combo has been continuously, kicking in to help the market. And also, I think the new productivity has also been growing really fast. Well, if you take a look at all the data by statistic bureaus, you will find out, yes, the GDP are growing fast, but also high technology and equipment industry are growing even faster, especially when you're looking at aerospace and aviation, there's about 20%. If you take a look at the IT industry, it's about 16%. 3D printers, lithium battery, and also industrial robots, they averagely been growing more than 40%, while given the current international sentiment, I think this kind of growth is absolutely phenomenal. And also talking about export, I think this is basically going beyond everybody's expectation, because you're looking at import and export average about 20%. Given the current geopolitical conflicts, this is basically beyond JP Morgan, beyond Nomura, beyond Goldman Sachs expectation. And we didn't expect it to be that high, even though we expect it to be very high. So I think this structure shows that Chinese, export and capacity is very resilient. And also talking about structurally about consumptions, we've been seeing during the Spring Festival and during February and the whole February, we find out service sectors are growing really, really fast, especially for the tourism, about hospitality industries, and which contributed to a higher rising of the CPI. So I think all factors are kicking in together, from the policy to the high technology, the fundamentals, and also to the structure changing to the services. And also, I think all that contributed to a good opening of the first quarter of China.
That was Chu Cheng, a fellow of the Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China. And China's pledged to upgrade its traditional industries over the next 5 years. As the world's largest shipbuilder, the country is also transforming that sector to boost global competitiveness. Wu Bin visited the construction site of China's second domestically built large cruise ship to see how the industry is evolving.
LNG ship, aircraft carrier, and large cruise ship. These are the three most difficult ships to build, known as crown jewels in shipbuilding. And now, China has the ability to build all three of them. But it's not enough to just build them. China wants to be among the best in the world. Take a large cruise ship, for example. It's the most complex ship in the world. One of these floating cities on the sea has over 25 million parts, 5 times those of an airplane. I'm now on the deck of China's second domestically built large cruise ship, Adora Flora City, docked on the mouth of the Yangtze River. From the outside, the ship is almost ready. But what about the inside? Adora Flora City is a bit larger than its predecessor, with a bigger passenger capacity. But that's not the most significant improvement. I ask one of the engineers. He points to something called DSP, a digital platform that connects all sectors of the ship.
China's manufacturing sector is now under the trend of digital transformation, and our factory is no exception. When tackling highly complex projects like large cruise ships, it's challenging to deliver vessels on schedule without leveraging digital tools.
Put simply, the DSP is able to manage every step of the shipbuilding and make sure that everyone is on the same page. To build a large ship that requires over 3,000 people working simultaneously, digital management is crucial for avoiding errors. Yuan gives the example of electric cables. For Adora Flora City, over 4,700 kilometers of cable are needed. That's 10 times longer than regular ships, and almost the length across half of China. In the past, cables were a big problem because workers might just randomly install them as long as they were functional. But about a month ago, we saw the cables were well organized.
We're developing our own cable system at the design stage. For each floor, how many cables, what specifications, what models, and what types to use, our designers have input the information directly into the modeling process according to the drawing requirements.
That's what Yuan calls a full cycle management, which was tried for the first time from design to installation on the second ship. Instead of traditional paper blueprints, engineers are making use of tablets. It helps engineers to visualize the constructing steps and gives details of the materials needed. Artificial intelligence is also helping improve efficiency. In one of the warehouses, AGVs and robots automatically stack the materials into storage.
For example, when I give it instructions, such as the timing for material requirements, it uses AI algorithms to optimize storage paths based on the first-in, first-out principle.
China's 15th five-year plan highlighted the need to optimize and upgrade traditional industries, including shipbuilding. And digital transformation is key to enhancing the global competitiveness of China's shipbuilding sector. Now, for the country's major shipbuilding factories and ship types, digital tools like the DSP are continuously improving efficiency and quality. That's why China has remained the world's top shipbuilder for 16 consecutive years, grabbing the largest market share. In 2025, China's shipbuilding sector has given a satisfactory performance despite the world's new orders down for about 10% in total. The China Association of the National Shipbuilding Industry predicts that the market volatility may increase in the future. But for the domestic shipbuilding sector, capturing the certainty gives it the confidence to face the uncertainty in the world.
That was Wu Bin reporting. Coming up, protests across the West against the U.S. Israeli strikes on Iran.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. become more eco-conscious, and take action to protect our planet.
20 minutes past the hour. Protests have erupted across many Western countries opposing U.S. Israeli attacks on Iran. Demonstrators in Washington, D.C. rallied outside the White House to question the legality of the strikes.
As a human being, I think it's your responsibility to speak out against atrocities, whether it affects you personally or not. Hearing that these things are happening on a consistent basis, it's something that you need to come out for and speak out for.
I don't really think so. Because, I mean, all I've heard about the only reason that we have attacked them is because they've been 2 weeks away from a nuclear war. But, I mean, they've been saying that for years, and they haven't ever really given evidence of it. So they just launched a preemptive strike with no authorization whatsoever as well. So I don't really think it's justified in any way.
In Australia, protesters in Sydney also called for an end to the attacks on Iran, while urging peace in Palestine. They said the bombings by the U.S. and Israel violate international law.
We want the U.S. government and the Israeli government especially to stop the bombing immediately, unconditional, to stop the war. They're hurting a lot of people. In fact, they're hurting the whole world. These are obviously totally illegal, and they don't care that it's illegal.
We don't need America to be police of the world. The attacking was nothing law, was under no law.
Protesters in Europe have also expressed opposition to the strikes on Iran. Demonstrators outside of a U.S. air base in Sicily demanded the Italian government stop supporting the attacks. In London, thousands of protesters gathered on the south bank of the River Thames to express support for Iran and opposition to the military action. A counter-protest backing the U.S. and Israel took place on the river's north bank. Police deployed around 1,000 officers and sealed off nearby roads to prevent the possibility of clashes. The Iranian foreign minister says the country is not asking for a ceasefire or negotiations with the United States, noting that Tehran's prepared to defend itself as long as it takes. In an interview with CBS News that aired on Sunday, Sayed Abbas Araghchi rejected claims that Iran has sought to end the hostilities. Speaking about the nuclear issue, Araghchi reiterated that Tehran has never sought nuclear weapons. The minister said Iran had agreed to dilute its enriched uranium during pre-attack talks with the United States. He said those enriched materials are now under the rubble following strikes on its nuclear facilities. He added that Iran has no current plans to recover enriched uranium stockpiles from those damaged sites. U.S. President Donald Trump said Saturday that he's not ready to make a deal to end the military campaign against Iran because the terms aren't good enough yet. The Middle East conflict's immediate impact on energy prices is threatening to reignite inflation in the United States. Democrats have criticized President Trump for adding to the economic pain of Americans with the attacks on Iran. Owen Fairclough has more from Washington, D.C.
Donald Trump leaving his Florida golf course, maintaining a weekend routine during a moment of potentially transformative global volatility. More than 2 weeks into a conflict he's leading against Iran, the U.S. president repeatedly tells the public he's winning. But if U.S. casualties are so far low, the wider cost is already apparent, on top of more than $11 billion Trump's administration spent in just the first week.
We will have removed the greatest risk to global energy supplies.
As Iran's throttling of around a fifth of the world's crude oil and gas drives up fuel prices, Trump's energy secretary on Sunday warned there'll be no immediate relief.
The world simply can't see a nuclear-armed Iran. And so I'm proud of his actions. But yes, it is a short-term disruption in the flow of energy. Americans are feeling it right now. Americans will feel it for a few more weeks.
Average gasoline prices in the U.S. have risen more than 20% compared to a month ago. And opposition Democrats are trying to leverage this as even a minority of Trump's own Republicans question the cost and objectives.
The president said he was going to focus on costs of the American people. He is driving them up. So not only did he cut millions of people's health care, not only has he taken steps through his tariffs that are driving up costs and driving out small businesses, but now he's doing something that is further increasing the pain of American people.
Even so, some of the most recent polling suggests more people in the U.S. are now backing the strikes on Iran compared to the start. And on Sunday, the International Energy Agency said emergency oil reserves unleashed to drive down fuel prices should be available by the end of March, as Americans typically travel for spring vacations.
That was Owen Fairclough reporting. Brazil currently has one of the highest benchmark interest rates among major economies, with the Selic rate standing at 15%. This directly affects mortgages, installment purchases, and even the cost of agricultural production. Lei Shengping reports.
At a real estate agency in downtown São Paulo, agent Nathan Abetin says high rates are making customers more cautious.
Even with interest rates around 15%, the real estate market has not stopped. What we are seeing is not a slowdown in the market, but a change in customer behavior. High interest rates have indeed increased the cost of installment payments.
For many Brazilians, high borrowing costs are also changing everyday spending.
We Brazilians like paying in installments. When people are short of money and need some cash, they take out loans, and the interest rates are very high. This can create a snowball effect. In the end, people may find themselves overwhelmed by debt.
Personally, I would reduce my spending to some extent because everything is very expensive. Credit is expensive as well. People buy fewer houses and don't change their cars.
In rural areas, the impact of high interest rates is evident too. Danilo Lima, who runs the agricultural machinery sales firm, says rising financing costs are limiting production.
I can give you a precise figure. Due to declining sales and financing problems, rural producers have reduced their purchases of agricultural machinery by more than 50%. For example, a farmer may need to buy new equipment, such as a new tractor. But when they calculate the costs, they realize that with today's interest rates, if they take a 5-year loan, by the time they finish paying it off, the total amount is equivalent to the price of 2 tractors.
Brazil's benchmark rate is new its highest in 2 decades. The central bank says tight policy is needed to curb persistent inflation. Former central bank economist Ayrton Braga says the policy has had some effect, but not enough.
Esse indicador ele chegou a 5,3%.
This inflation index reached 5.3% last April and fell to 4.3% by the end of 2025. So the decline has been significant, more than 1 percentage point. The problem is that inflation target is 3%. That means the current inflation rate is still more than 1 percentage point above the target.
There is a growing debate over whether interest rates should be lowered. Officials and industry groups say cheaper credit could help stimulate investment and job creation. But economist Andre Saconato warns that cutting rates too quickly could push inflation higher again, especially amid continued fiscal spending pressures.
The central bank could lower rates by 2 to 2.5 percentage points over 4 or 5 meetings. But if the rate reaches around 12.5%, it may not be able to go lower. That's because fiscal pressure could push inflation up again, and the central bank would have to respond. Therefore, the key condition for a long-term decline in interest rates is fiscal adjustment.
Economists know that even if rate cuts begin, it typically takes 6 to 9 months for changes in monetary policy to fully affect the real economy. That means any impact on consumption, investment, and employment may only become visible in the second half of the year. For Brazil's central bank, balancing inflation risks, financial pressures, and economic growth remains a delicate task as it navigates a narrow policy path ahead.
That was Lei Shengping reporting with contributions from Young E. Meng. We're at 29 past the hour. Beijing, cloudy overnight. It's down to +2, a high of 12 on Tuesday. Shanghai will see a light rainfall overnight and through tomorrow with a low of 9 and a high of 13. Chongqing will see some rainfall overnight and tomorrow. It's down to 9, then a high of 15 degrees. Nanchang's getting a light rainfall and 11 overnight, thus becoming thunder showers in 21 degrees. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, high-level Chinese and U.S. delegations have gathered in Paris for economic and trade talks. China's economy is off to a strong start with many major indicators putting up robust growth numbers. Protesters in several Western countries have held rallies against the U.S. Israeli attacks on Iran. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
Listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. And right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Ever wondered what's actually going on in Africa through the perspective of an African? How are things really going between China and Africa? What's the narrative of this relationship? Well, get a perspective with China-Africa Talk. Hear from African diplomats, entrepreneurs, academics, Chinese natives, and more. Get on our wavelength every week to find out what's real with China-Africa Talk. Find us on your favorite podcast. We'll see you there.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Bigham, with you on this Monday. Still to come. In business, China's services sector is booming through the first couple of months of the year. In sports, the Winter Paralympic Games have come to a close in Italy. In culture and entertainment, the National Ballet of China is now on an overseas tour. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTNradio. Now checking the day's headlines, here's Wang Zihang.
Thank you, Shane. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says Beijing and Washington remain in communication regarding U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to China. A ministry spokesperson has stressed that head of state diplomacy plays an irreplaceable strategic leading role in China-US relations. The Turkmen national leader and chairman of the People's Council will pay a goodwill visit to China from Tuesday to Thursday. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov's visit comes at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. China has called on all parties involved in the Iran conflict to immediately halt military actions to minimize the impact on global economic development. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian made the comments following U.S. remarks concerning China and regarding the Strait of Hormuz.
The recent tense situation in the Strait of Hormuz and its surrounding waters has disrupted international trade channels for goods and energy, undermining regional and global peace and stability. China once again calls on all parties to immediately cease military operations, avoid a further escalation of tensions, and prevent regional unrest from having a greater impact on global economic development. China maintains communication with all parties on the current situation and is committed to promoting the easing and cooling down of the situation.
The U.S. president has demanded that 7 countries join a coalition to escort vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. The strait is a key waterway through which about 20% of the world's oil passes. China's Special Envoy on Middle East Affairs says achieving a ceasefire and resolving dispute through dialogue is the broad consensus of the international community, and the key now is to turn that consensus into action. Zhai Jun made the remarks during a phone call with Qatar's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Zhai said Beijing is willing to work with Doha to use their respective influence to promote a ceasefire and restore peace and stability as soon as possible. Mohammed bin Abdulaziz Al Khulaifi praised China's fair and balanced position and said Qatar is ready to maintain close coordination with China to help de-escalate tensions. The conflict in Iran has also dominated the agenda of the Canada-Nordic Summit in Oslo. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney met with leaders from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland and Iceland on Sunday. The leaders have pledged to strengthen cooperation in defense and security in the Arctic region and promote green economic growth. They've also expressed concerns about the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store urged the countries involved to find an end to the hostilities.
We are not part of this war. We did not initiate it, but we are all affected by it. So I think there's a clear call here that international law must be respected. and it should be the responsibility of the concerned parties to find ways of ending the hostilities that now have great impact around the world.
Meanwhile, leaders at the meeting have expressed full support for Greenland and Denmark's right for self-determination. Denmark's Prime Minister says the country has received unacceptable pressure from the United States, adding that Denmark will continue to safeguard national sovereignty. In January, Trump threatened to impose sweeping tariffs on Europe to gain control of Greenland. The head of the World Health Organization has condemned the killing of 14 health workers in southern Lebanon following Israeli strikes on 2 medical facilities. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that since March the 2nd, the organization has verified 27 attacks on healthcare infrastructure in Lebanon, leaving 30 people dead and 35 injured. He stressed that under international humanitarian law, medical personnel and facilities must never be attacked or militarized. Israel has blamed Hezbollah for using health facilities and ambulances for military purposes. Lebanon's health ministry accuses Israel of deliberately targeting medical workers and says Israeli claims that ambulances are being used for military purposes are a pretext for the attacks.
All right, thank you very much. That's Wang Ziheng with headlines. Coming up in business, China's services sector is booming through the first couple of months of the year.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
37 past the hour. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed mixed on Monday. The Shanghai Composite was down around 0.3%. The Shenzhen component increased nearly 0.2. Fisheries and passenger car shares were among the top gainers. Timothy Pope has more.
The Chinese mainland markets perked up a little bit, although concerns over the impact of the war in the Middle East are still on investors' minds. The media reports that China's second biggest chip producer, Hua Hong Semiconductor, has made a pretty significant breakthrough on producing chips that can be used to train and run artificial intelligence. Gave the market some good news to focus on. The Shanghai Composite Index was still down about 0.25%, but we saw tech and AI sectors rising strongly. Hua Hong itself was up 12.2% after that report from Reuters, which said that the contract chip-making arm of Hua Hong, which is called Huali Microelectronics, is preparing to start 7-nanometer chip production here in Shanghai together with Huawei. Currently, SMIC is the only Chinese chip company capable of making chips this small. And while this is still apparently a little bit behind world industry leaders, it is a big jump ahead for Hua Hong, which has traditionally been working with older chip designs. So that news dragged the whole semiconductor sector higher. However, as I said, Iran war anxiety persists, and we saw materials, energy, utilities and industrial stocks all trading lower on Monday, and they were a considerable drag on the market here in Shanghai.
In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index gained over 1.4%. Japan's Nikkei was down more than 0.1%. China's Services Production Index for the first 2 months of the year increased 5.2% on a yearly basis. The production index of the information transmission sector increased over 10%, and leasing and business services rose more than 8%. In February, the Business Activity Index for Services was 49.7, up 0.2 points from the previous month. The Business Activity Index for Accommodation, Catering, Sports, and Entertainment all remained in the booming range over 60. During the 2 months, the retail sales of services increased 5.6%. Retail sales of communication services, tourism, consulting services, and cultural, sports, and recreational services witnessed rapid growth. Meanwhile, online retail sales of services reached nearly 1.2 trillion yuan, or around $170 billion, and that was up 7.3%. The second event of the Big Market for All Export to China campaign is underway. It has brought together global brands, importers, and consumers under one roof. According to the Chinese Commerce Ministry, the campaign aims to turn China's massive market into a gateway for global products. Li Shuang has more.
The campaign, called Big Market for All Export to China, is part of China's broader push to expand imports and tap the purchasing power of its vast consumer market. More than 1,000 imported products are on display here, from food and consumer goods to advanced industrial components. Officials say the goal is to turn China's massive market into a gateway for global products.
The event highlights China's determination to independently expand unilateral opening up. It is also a practical step by China to respond to the needs of its global trading partners and work together to grow the pie of international trade.
Nearly 100 import-focused companies are taking part, showcasing products and exploring opportunities in China's fast-growing consumer market.
We've selected products that Chinese tourists visiting Egypt love to buy. Starting May 1st, China will implement a zero-tariff policy for African countries, and Egypt will benefit as well. Many Egyptian businesses are eager to test the Chinese market.
New technologies are also helping bring overseas products closer to Chinese consumers.
In recent years, China has introduced a range of policies to encourage imports. These measures allow Chinese consumers to buy quality products from around the world at competitive prices through cross-border e-commerce. Going forward, we plan to expand our digital supply chain, using AI to quickly identify high-quality overseas products and connect them with China's consumer market.
The event echoes a key message from China's two sessions political gathering: expand imports and promote more balanced trade. Initiatives like exports to China underscores Beijing's commitment to further opening up its market and strengthening global economic cooperation.
That was Li Shuang reporting. Global buyers have flocked to Shanghai for the just-concluded Appliance and Electronics World Expo to scout for partners in China. The expo brought together more than 1,200 enterprises from around the world, showcasing their latest innovations, with over 10,000 products making their global debut. The innovation of Chinese products acts as a magnet for international buyers, while the country's increasingly open institutional environment gives them the confidence to attend in person. The expo is becoming an excellent platform for a growing number of international buyers seeking new partnerships and business opportunities in China. Organizers say this year's expo attracted visitors from 112 countries and regions, marking a yearly increase of more than 30%. Chinese scientists have made it possible to have clothes that automatically absorb heat under the blazing sun, keeping people cool and comfortable. The secret behind this is a substance known as phase change material. In the realm of smart wearables, these materials are widely recognized as a revolutionary solution for thermal control. The scientists say it acts like a smart air conditioner hidden within the fabric. When the external temperature rises, it silently absorbs and stores the heat. When the temperature drops, it slowly releases that stored heat. The research team has woven the phase change fibers into garments and conducted tests. Results show that at noon on a scorching summer day, wearing this temperature-regulating vest can lower the surface temperature by up to 8 degrees Celsius compared to a regular polyester vest. Whereas in the tests also say the burning sensation on the back under the scorching sun completely disappeared, making it feel they were just standing in the shade all along. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says he expects the war with Iran to end within the next few weeks, with oil supplies rebounding and energy costs declining afterwards. Mitch McCann has more.
Chris Wright says it will be in a couple of weeks that this war could be over, but he didn't offer much clarity around exactly when that would happen. Given that the timeline is uncertain as to when vessels will be able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz without the fear of being bombed, quite frankly, there will still be little relief for investors and for those purchasing oil for the foreseeable future. Oil trading doesn't begin. It might be slightly eased in the coming days as the International Energy Agency and the US prepare to release millions of barrels of reserve oil, but it's going to take a number of weeks before that, the effects of that are fully felt. On the economy this morning, Kevin Hassett, he's the president's chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. He said America is not going to have its economy harmed by what Iran is doing. He said they think they're going to harm the economy and there couldn't be a stupider thing to say. Those were his words.
That was Mitch McCann reporting. Japan's begun releasing oil from its reserves to ease supply concerns amid the escalating Middle East conflict. The country is reportedly releasing 15 days' worth of reserves held by the private sector, with a month's worth of government-held oil to follow. The Japanese government will lower the mandatory reserve requirement for oil refiners and trading firms from 70 days to 55 days, enabling them to utilize part of their existing inventories. Preparations are underway to sell oil from government-held reserves to wholesalers. This marks the seventh time Japan has drawn on its oil reserves since the system was introduced in the 1970s. The country relies on the Middle East for more than 90% of its crude oil imports. China's first large-scale coal-bed methane field has reached a record daily production capacity of 11 million cubic meters. The Danning Jixian block in Shanxi province is a national demonstration project for deep coal-bed methane exploitation. Construction of the field, which has proven reserves of 400 billion cubic meters, began in 2019. In 2025, the field produced a cumulative 3 billion cubic meters of coal-bed methane, making it the largest of its kind in the country to date. The second phase of capacity expansion at the block is currently underway and is expected to add 1.5 billion cubic meters of annual production capacity. As an unconventional natural gas, coal-bed methane is considered a clean and strategic energy reserve. Its utilization can help reduce mining risks, cut greenhouse gas emissions, and ease gas shortages. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, the Winter Paralympic Games have come to a close in Italy.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
We're 47 past now, turning to sports. Here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Shane. The Milano Cortina Winter Paralympics has come to a close after 10 days of competition. A record 611 athletes from 55 countries and regions competed in 79 medal events across 6 sports. Women's participation also hit a new high with 160 competitors, while 27 National Paralympic Committees won medals, the most in Winter Paralympics history. China topped the table with 44 medals. The United States finished second, followed by Russia and host nation Italy. International Paralympic Committee President Andrew Parsons praised China's performance.
Well, the Chinese team has been fantastic, topping the medal table. Many athletes, many young athletes. I think all the investment made in the leading up to Beijing 2022 paid off, and still investment. So it's great to see China with such a huge performance at the Winter Paralympics.
With the flame now extinguished, attention turns to the 2030 Winter Paralympics in France. Kimi Antonelli became Formula One's second youngest race winner on Sunday, taking a composed victory for Mercedes at an eventful Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai. The 19-year-old Italian started from pole position and briefly lost the lead to Lewis Hamilton at the start, but he quickly retook control to secure his first Grand Prix win.
You know, such a great result. I achieved one of my dreams, which was to win the world to win the race, and then my next one, of course, is to win the world championship. But the road is still long, and George is super strong, and it's gonna take a lot to beat him. But I'm gonna enjoy as much as possible today because it's a great day.
It was a second straight one to finish for Mercedes to start the season, with teammate George Russell battling both Ferraris to take second place.
Intense day. Obviously, race start, Ferrari got the upper hand of us. Safety car restart, they got the upper hand of us. And unfortunately, that was sort of hindered my chances of going for victory. Kimi did a great job, so really well done to him.
Max Verstappen was running sixth when his car lost power, forcing him to lean back to the pits in another blow for the four-time champion. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were both unable to start after technical problems hit their McLarens minutes before the race. The only driver younger than Antonelli to win the Grand Prix is Verstappen, who was 18 when he took his first victory in 2016. Meanwhile, Formula One officially cancelled next month's races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia due to safety concerns from the ongoing war in the Middle East. France's Felix Lebrun has claimed the men's singles title at the WTT champions Chongqing, defeating China's Wen Weibo 4-1. The world number 5 called the victory an amazing journey. On his way to the final, LeBron also defeated Brazil's Hugo Calderano and Japan's Sora Matsushima, both in 7-game battles. In the women's final, Japan's Miwa Harimoto edged China's Kwai Man 4-3 to take the title. Turning to football, Manchester City faces a monumental challenge in the Premier League title race after a 1-1 draw with West Ham. The result leaves them 9 points behind league leaders Arsenal. City's focus now switches to the Champions League quarter-finals after a 3-0 first-leg defeat to Real Madrid in the Spanish capital. A first-half hat-trick from Federico Valverde put Pep Guardiola's side on the brink of elimination. Speaking ahead of the return leg on Tuesday, Guardiola insisted his players must show belief despite the daunting deficit.
If they don't believe, it's his problem. They are adults. They have a good salaries. Mom and dad, well educated. If they don't believe in that in Champions League, go home, stay home. We have to try it. What do we have to lose?
Guardiola acknowledged the scale of the task, noting that no team has ever overturned a 3-0 first-leg deficit in Champions League history. However, he pointed to positive spells in the first leg and recent performances as reasons for optimism. Liverpool manager Arne Slot has admitted that frustration is mounting after his side dropped more points in a 1-1 draw with Tottenham. Dominic Szoboszlai's first-half free-kick put the home side ahead, but Richarlison scored the late equaliser to rescue a point. The result leaves Liverpool 5th in the table, while Tottenham remains 16th. Slot was critical of his team's inability to kill off games, a problem he says has persisted all season.
Yeah, of course it's damaging, but it's how many times this has been damaging for us. We don't help ourselves at all. It's so many of times this season that we've created much more XG or chances than the amount of goals we score. And yeah, that's a bad combination for picking up the amount of points we want to pick up.
Meanwhile, Manchester United strengthened its grip on the top 4 finish with a 3-1 home win over Aston Villa.
All right, thank you very much. That's Yang Guang with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, the National Ballet of China is on an overseas tour.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
53 past now, turning to culture and entertainment. The National Ballet of China has brought its original production of A Dream of the Red Mansion to Singapore, presenting one of China's best-known literary classics to local audiences. The ballet tells the story of Jia Baoyu, drawing on key scenes from Cao Shui-qin's classic novel to portray the splendor and decline of the Grand View Garden. Chinese ambassador to Singapore, Cao Zhongming, says the production reinterprets classic literature from a contemporary perspective while blending classical ballet with Chinese aesthetic traditions. He says the performance shows Chinese culture is deeply rooted in history and relevant to the modern world. The performance follows an earlier stop in Bangkok, marking Singapore the troupe's second overseas destination on the tour. China is becoming increasingly attractive to international travelers thanks to a series of visa facilitation measures and improved tourism services. At ITB Berlin 2026, one of the world's leading tourism trade fairs, the Nihao China Pavilion drew strong interest from visitors eager to experience Chinese culture and travel offerings. Industry representatives say inbound travelers are showing growing interest in China's traditional culture and natural scenery, and also in more flexible, in-depth travel experiences beyond major tourist destinations. Smart tourism solutions also stood out at the event, with Chinese companies showcasing AI-powered itinerary planning and cross-border travel services designed to make trips easier and more personalized. Tourism officials say China is continuing to improve access and infrastructure, helping attract more overseas visitors, including from Germany and other European countries. In the heart of the Sharjah Heritage District in the United Arab Emirates, a unique sanctuary is bridging the gap between the Middle East and East Asia. Wang Zheng takes us inside the Dawani Calligraphy House to see how the ancient strokes of China and Arabia are finding common ground.
Nestled in Sharjah, the UAE's cultural capital, stands an award-winning architectural gem, the Dawani Calligraphy House. More than just a gallery, it is a living dialogue between heritage and the avant-garde. The building itself is a canvas housing about 200 masterpieces that span centuries, from rigid display of classical scripts to the raw energy of modern graffiti.
That's what you have in the Diwani house now, or Diwani building, where I try to mix between, this is three style, between classic, very old piece, what I have here, from Ottomanic or from old style, until modern, until today contemporary, what we have like graffiti or different kind of material we are using.
In 2025, the Sharjah Diwani Calligraphy Museum joined hands with the Zhejiang Art Museum, co-organizing an exhibition of Chinese and Arabic calligraphy art in Liangzhu, China. And the Chinese connection does not stop there. Inside the house, the connection is tangible. Two pieces stand out: a Chinese scroll depicting Longma Jingshen, the vigorous spirit of the dragon horse, and the Arabic work executed with the fluid rhythmic soul of Chinese brushwork. For Mr. El-Madloun, the two traditions are kindred spirits.
But both sides, they have one point. If you want to writing something, not only for writing or for beauty, you would like to send us some message. Thus, both sides, they have this kind of points. And that's very important. But you are start from poetry, from beauty, from song. We have from religion, from human, from the people, from different kind. But sometimes we have poetry also, or we have very important writing, something.
Chinese calligraphy emphasizes the rhythm of vitality, but Arabic calligraphy seeks geometrical perfection. While the tools differ, but they both strive for ultimate life force in every line.
That was Wang Zheng reporting. We're at 57 past now, checking the forecast before we go for the day. Beijing's cloudy overnight. The temperature's down to +2. We have a high of 12 on Tuesday. Shanghai will see a light rainfall overnight and through tomorrow with a low of 9 and a high of 13. Chongqing's getting a light rain this evening and through tomorrow a low of 9, a high of 15. Nanchang's getting some rainfall overnight. It's down to 11. That rain turns to thunder showers in 21 tomorrow. Lhasa will be cloudy tonight and tomorrow with a low of 0 and a high of 10. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad's getting a light rainfall and 10 degrees, a high of 20 on Tuesday. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, the high-level Chinese and U.S. delegations have gathered in Paris for economic and trade talks. And China's economy is off to a strong start with many major indicators putting up robust growth numbers. On behalf of the staff, Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the yellow river in his eyes.
The yellow river is so noble and elegant. Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in a time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio